Bill O'Brien, who would know a little something about this Dallas Cowboys draft class. Tyler Booker obviously was the prominent first pick coming out of the class. Then it was Donovan Ezeiruaku, the Boston College edge rusher. Both of those have ties to Bill O'Brien, who is now the head coach at Boston College and coached Donovan Ezeiruaku last year, and then was the one who recruited Tyler Booker to Alabama as the offensive coordinator, was with him for his freshman season. So Tommy Arish over at DallasCowboys.com had reached out to Bill O'Brien and just said, hey, would you be willing to talk about these two from the top of the draft class and your thoughts on them? And he had some really interesting things to say. Before we get into that specifically, I did want to address something a little odd that I read yesterday from Jeremy Fowler. So Jeremy Fowler had his breakdown of key intel, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, his breakdown of key intel coming out of the NFL draft. So he reaches out to his sources, cultivates all this. He does this every year. A week or two after the draft, he goes, okay, now that he's gone out and talked to everybody about everybody's different class, what are your thoughts on it? Then he shares like, hey, here's the reaction to what all 32 teams did. So his Cowboys one was the very top of his list. That was the first one that he got into, and gave him really high praise for Savone Ravel, their cornerback, who they picked in the third round. He said he was considered one of the best value picks in the entire draft. An executive with an AFC team said, quote, I thought there was a big drop-off at corner after him. That's why I thought he had a chance to go late 1, early 2. A lot of people like Donovan Ezeiruaku. They said leadership and explosion. Sometimes you just see it right away. That was a don't overthink it pick. But he misses really bad, I think, here on this particular note. He says some around the league believe receiver Tetairoa McMillan would have been Dallas's pick if available. That includes Todd Archer, who wrote a back and forth with Jeremy Fowler and Brooke Pryor on the George Pickens trade. And Todd said if McMillan was there, they were picking McMillan. But he goes, he, quote, would have been an option per a source. But quietly, a few rival teams thought Tyler Booker fit the Cowboys' profile as a no-nonsense offensive lineman with pedigree. Dallas tried to trade down from number 12, but was not able to pull off the deal. Any sort of suggestion that Tyler Booker would be a Dallas Cowboy if Tet McMillan was there at pick 12 is wildly off base. That was a literal, as I heard from somebody after the pick happened, they said that was a D punch when we lost McMillan. That hurt. We really liked him. We thought that was somebody who fit just about everything that we wanted. So him going off the board was a big punch to the Cowboys. No doubt about it, McMillan was the pick. They were not trading away from that. They would not have moved that. They would have turned that in at 9 minutes and 59 seconds on the draft clock.
I tell you, though, hindsight.
RJ did a little draft study.
I'd much rather be where we are right now.
Pickens
with Booker,
and Booker?
Booker and Pickens over McMillan and fill in the blank, because they don't take Ezeiruaku in the second if they don't get Booker. I don't think. Now maybe they do, but like,
probably not. They probably
look
trade
for an offensive line.
They probably trade away from that pick.
Yeah.
If they take McMillan at 12, they probably trade away from the pick and move back, and then Ezeiruaku goes, and they probably take Ravel in the second round, and then they've got their third round pick and their fourth, and then they would have picked up a fourth probably. So the fourth
and they
probably
got a guard or whatever.
Fourth may have ended up being Shedeur Sanders. To be honest, if they pick up a fourth and then he's just staring him in the face, they may have taken Shedeur Sanders in the fourth.
Look, I love taking wide receivers. I think wide receivers is a great position to take. At the end of the day, if you don't have an offensive line, you got no prayer. You get no prayer.
Yep.
So
anything else from your look back?
Yeah, I mean, like if you were to go back and you were to look at the draft, with where they were and who they got, and you go back to use the trade value chart, the old school one, right? That's the old school trade value chart. If they wanted to go get Tet, they would have gone from 12 to 8. That would have cost them a third. So would you know, and that's basically that's what they gave up for Pickens. If you wanted to go get Luther Burden in the second round, they would have had to go from 44 to 39. That's 50 points. They didn't have a fourth rounder, so they give up both fifth rounders. And then maybe Chicago throws back their sixth. If they wanted to go from 76 to 70 to take Isaac, is it Tesla?
Mm-hmm.
They
Tesla.
And a very explosive receiver.
Yes. They would have had to throw in their second fifth rounder, or to get Pat Bryant, it would have cost their sixth. So, like, every one of those players is a coin flip, whereas Pickens is a known commodity.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's like,
obviously a greater character risk.
Known to be nutty.
Known to be nutty.
Yeah, there's that. I don't blame them for not trading up. They didn't have a fourth round pick. I don't want them expending any extra capital to go up and get McMillan. But yeah, you hoped he would get to you at 12. And if he got to you at 12, then they're aggressively trying to move off of 44. And then they don't get Donovan Ezeiruaku, who Bill O'Brien coached at Boston College and spoke with Tommy Yarsh about. When Bill O'Brien accepted the head coaching job at BC, this is from DallasCowboys.com, in February of 2024, he met one player before meeting the rest of the team, and that was Donovan Ezeiruaku. O'Brien said right away you could tell that he was a very focused guy. You could tell he was very intense, smart, and he really helped us in our first year because he bought right in, and he was one of the main leaders of the team. He practiced every day and just a great guy to coach, and we're going to miss him. Tommy writes that any collegiate head coach would miss a player that tallied 80 tackles, 20.5 tackles for loss, and 16.5 sacks in their first season on the job. But Ezeiruaku's impact on the defense stretched beyond the stat sheet last year. O'Brien said he actually won us 2 or 3 games by strip sacking the quarterback, getting the ball back to the offense. Just a very explosive player, a guy that just relentlessly rushes the passer, a relentless defender, really. He plays 100 miles an hour on every play. And that's one of the things that really pops about him when you watch him. He is a go motor
So
player.
I feel the best, like, emotionally about Booker, and all the personality stuff and the interviews and everything right now is off the charts. But I feel the most solid and good about that pick.
Yeah, Ezeiruaku's a guy that's a double-digit sack player. If there's no reason when you look at his projection and what he put on tape that he can't get you 10 sacks in a season at some point.
Everyone seems to love that selection.
And again, a guy who Booker is such an easy one to get the attention for the leadership and just the command and the presence as such a young guy. Yeah, it's so easy to see that with him. But Ezeiruaku was, that's a team captain at Boston College. And that was a guy who has a very magnetic personality and has, in some of his dealings with the media, has been funny. They'll talk to him about growing up where he did in the Northeast and, saying, did your family grow up Eagles fans? And he goes, they're Cowboys fans now. That's all that matters. Yeah, that's all we're focusing on now. They're Cowboys fans. But Bill O'Brien just gave him a ton of really high marks, said he checks every box as a leader. He said he was a leader in every phase. He was in the front row of the team meetings. He was a guy that worked very, very hard in the weight room, stayed extra after practice, before practice, extra film. He was a voice that everybody listened to on the team. He was a unanimous selection for captain. Everybody voted for him, and I thought he did a really good job leading. And Ezeiruaku gave a lot of praise. We played the clip last week. Ezeiruaku gave a lot of praise to Bill O'Brien for, helping to bring him along and really, give him advice and guidance on how to get to the NFL. Now, what about Tyler Booker? So Bill O'Brien had, in his second and final year as the offensive coordinator at Alabama, was the first year that Tyler Booker played for Alabama, and he brought him in as a recruit. He said, I loved Booker, man. From the time we recruited him at Alabama to when he came to Alabama, I was only around for his freshman year, but he was a leader as a freshman. He was a relentless player, a tough guy. He loves to finish his blocks. He got better and better. He could pull out on counter plays, pull out on screens. I thought he did a good job of anchoring the pocket. Bryce Young was our quarterback and did a good job of protecting him. I think the world of Book. I think he's going to be a great, great pro. One of the things that he talked about, he said, I think he'll work hard to improve his ability, his change of direction, his lateral movement, and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, I never had an issue at all with his athleticism, because that's been a big question, obviously. What kind of an athlete is he? In fact, him mentioning there, talking about him pulling out on counter plays, pulling out on screens, that's the question. Can he get out and can he lead block? I will say, when you're watching the tape on Tyler Booker and you're trying to say, boy, he was a little late getting to that spot. He was a little late getting around. Most of the time you see that, it's Jalen Milroe running. Jalen Milroe's going to beat a lot of guards to the spot who are trying to pull out and lead block for him. Jalen Milroe's a fast guy.
Don't discount, real quick, sorry. The first 2 picks went to college programs or played for coaches who coached in the NFL. I think that does matter a little bit. I mean, I think they can prepare you better for the league than somebody who may not have. Saban obviously has a ton of guys in the league, and then Bill O'Brien. I've always liked Bill as a coach. I don't want him running my operation in the front office. I think Bill's a solid football coach.
And Ewer's agent came on the other day unscheduled and said a couple teams were trying to turn Milroe into a running back. That's the reason.
Yeah,
and he may not be able to throw.
When you talk about the SEC angle of it, specifically, Chop, Bill O'Brien says, I saw him block the second level. I saw him in the SEC pull out on block DBs on screens, kick out ends on counter plays. I never had an issue with his athletic ability. I think he's going to be fine. So what's his big advice for these two guys that he's coached as they head into the NFL? He says pro football is about the daily grind, being consistent, showing up every day. He said that you're going to have some days where they're not great. You're going to go up against a great tackle, a pro tackle, or a pro tight end. You're in a professional defensive scheme now. You're in with a lot of great people, Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons. Just put your head down and go to work. Just take it one day at a time and try to get better. The best pros were the ones that I was around that tried to improve every day, just one day at a time, try to get better every day. And he says that he thinks that's something that Donovan Ezeiruaku and Tyler Booker both really excel in, is the desire to be great and to continue to improve and to continue to work and learn. I know Ezeiruaku had talked about already hearing from Micah Parsons and wanting to reach out to him and get some insight. And you've got the same sort of angle from Tyler Booker, who talked about all the people that he reached out to for insight. So big thumbs up from a former NFL head coach and a big-time college coach in Bill O'Brien, who says, yeah, Dallas nailed it with these first two picks on Tyler Booker and Donovan Ezeiruaku.
And by the way, Jane Slater trying to add another layer to the George Pickens deal. What about Nick Chubb? Stephon Gilmore. I've been talking about Breece Hall before the drafting of Jaden Blue. Jane tweeted, I checked in on anything additional in the works. The response, they were never in play. Repeat, never in play.
Look, with Chubb, I'm fine. I mean, he's an older guy. He's been hurt.
Same.
You know, Breece is an interesting one because he's younger. He's explosive.
Has also been hurt, though.
Been hurt.
What's his skill set compared to Blue?
So, I mean, I really like, if you're talking about a bigger size running back, Breece Hall's a bigger guy. But I mean, Breece Hall's very explosive, and he's a better, like, if you're talking about mental processor, I think he's a much better mental processor at finding holes and hitting them. The question is just, if you look at his efficiency since his knee injury, it's gone way down. There is a question about him.
23.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, you wonder why would they want to move on from him? I mean, they have a lot of problems on that team, so they need to get better.